The only reason this podcast grows is because of you. When you hit that follow button or you leave us a review, it means the world to me. I did a cost analysis. Each episode, in terms of resources, costs somewhere around $2,500 and upward. We give a lot of this professional development away for free, but what makes the world to me is when you leave a review or you give us 5 stars, I will do everything in my power to make sure that the Manager's Mic podcast is exceptional and serves your professional development. I've actually picked up our expert's book on today's podcast and reading it. Diana, I always start every podcast as if there's one new person who's never heard of the Manager's Mic and may have never met you before. The book, if you've never heard of it, it's Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. I will put links to that book in the show notes. I recommend you check out that book. Diana Fritz, if you wouldn't mind just giving us that intro, and then we'll kind of go and talk about the core topic, which is resilience today, if that's fair.
Sounds good. Good. Great to be here. Thank you. Diana Fritz. I am in Florida. We're both probably in these warm climates right here at this time of the year. Have been honored to be a leader for multiple years and to serve as an executive with multiple companies. And I think that the preparation earlier in my life in regards to how to handle adversity and to choose your mindset no matter what happens was put to the test, like at a whole new level almost 12 years ago, when I was first diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Thus my unique look, if you're with us on video, with one eye, and certainly was able to put all of those lessons learned throughout life into good use to be resilient, to still lead regardless of going through something tough, to lead my family, lead in the work environment I was at, lead myself, and to just be a positive presence to the doctors and the people around me. And so I'm here today. I just had a chapel this morning and they asked me, how long have you been battling cancer? And I said, I'm proud to say 12 years because I'm still here. When I first heard about my cancer, people didn't live, 12 years after they were diagnosed. So I'm happy to be here.
I found what was really fascinating when I was studying your LinkedIn is you've had some pretty amazing career success. I mean, if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've held executive positions, vice president positions. And reading your book, you came from humble beginnings. I know your grandma, if I'm correct, had a big influence on you. And when you were younger, you actually had written a letter. I don't know if this is weird to say, but it was preparing you for something you didn't know was coming. Could we speak to that a little and peel back that onion, if that's fair?
That paper you're referencing was handwritten because at the time when I was in college, we didn't have computers or email. I didn't have a cell phone. So it was a handwritten paper and I had forgotten I wrote it. And a few months after my eye was removed, I was cleaning out things in my closet and I found that paper and it gave me the chills because it was like a letter from my younger self to my older self. And indicating that if someone were to get cancer or a life-threatening disease, they have the freedom to choose how they're going to respond. They'll get life's not fair, and they'll need to figure out if faith and the people around them are going to help them to choose positive and navigate through the respective circumstance. I actually read that today to a group of kids, and like the importance of that I was 17 when I wrote that paper.
Really?
And at the time, I was reading Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, and that's a portion of what I was writing about. That was a man in a Nazi prison camp, still choosing his response. And if he could choose his response, then certainly I could with whatever I was navigating through at 17. And that lesson has been applied multiple times over my lifetime.
If I may, are you pretty open to talk about the time, if we jump around your journey into what you went through? Do I have your permission to ask those questions about it? I just want to be sensitive because for anyone who knows this is the first time you and I have talked except through email. So I just always like to ask permission if it's cool with you if I go a little further.
You certainly can. You certainly can.
And I appreciate that. So you were 17 when you wrote that. And you may have missed this in the book because I have to read something a couple times. What age range were we when that news came? Because for me, I know sometimes I personally have wah-wahs. I have my own challenges, but your book is helping me reframe and redefine and reflect on how I can be better at reframing better. When you went through that, what was the time frame when you went through it? And what were the, maybe for somebody who hasn't read the book yet, so those initial shocks, initial thoughts? Let's talk about that if you're comfortable going there.
Sure. And I think you're meaning my initial when I was initially diagnosed with cancer.
Correct.
Yeah, fresh on my mind actually. I was 40 and well, it was my year of 40 and I was excited looking forward to a milestone year.
Yeah.
Was a newly divorced mom with 2 small boys, and I had a lot of commitments that year to be a better mom, to have them in a better environment, to be a better executive, a better leader. I wanted to go on a missions trip. I had all these things I wanted to do, and all good intentions, and
Right.
within 30 days of that year starting, I had a biopsy done on my caruncle, which is the little pink area near your eye,
Correct.
but, where this one was. I don't think anybody thought when they did it that it was gonna be cancer. But when you get the
Mm.
call to come into the office, it's not good because if it's good news, they tell you on the phone. Um, and I went in by myself because I've been a pretty independent, person my whole life, and so I went in on my own even though I knew I was getting bad news. I wasn't thinking it was gonna be as extreme as it was. They looked at me, "Diana, the rare form of cancer, there's only a few hundred cases reported a year, and we're gonna need to send you to Miami for care." And I did okay at first until the doctor and the nurse got up and gave me a hug, and then I went, "Oh, okay, this is a big
Yeah.
deal." And I went home by myself, and I can remember being really frustrated and going, "Okay, God, I did all you asked me to do, right? I have all this planned for this year." And I don't have time, right? I can't do this because my boys were like 2 and 4. They were little.
Oh,
And,
wow.
my dear friend's mom knocked on my door, and I don't know how she got in that building because it was a condo building, and you don't get in without getting buzzed in, but somehow she got in. And she's like, "Diana, I knew you were alone, and I knew you needed a hug, and I knew you needed somebody to pray with you and encourage you." And then she left. She was only there for probably 5 minutes, but that helped me to go, "Okay, I don't know that I'll ever know why me with this cancer, but I don't wanna miss the opportunity in this. So maybe I don't get to go to the mission field, but maybe I get to meet new people that I've never would have met before at hospitals in Miami and doctors and nurses. I get to choose my response." And I was reminded
Right.
of that moment. It doesn't mean that I didn't get frustrated throughout the journey, but shifting to go, "Okay, what's the opportunity in this?" was really impactful for me, and I also had to learn how to let people help me. My
Mm.
parents stepped in a big way to help me with my kids when I had, I think, about 5 surgeries in a few months.
Oh,
I
wow.
was not able to be a mom really, so they took my kids for me, and I learned how to let people help me.
You learned how to let people help you. Do you share that? Because I know for me sometimes I struggle with, I need to do it, control it kind of person. I think that's one of my pain points of behavior I need to change. Is that similar as to why when you said I need to let people help me is why you share that with me?
Yes, I think moms maybe in particular too, right? We get like, we've got it, and you end up juggling all these things, and you probably don't really have it, and you probably need help, but we
Right.
we tend to just, fight for that and to do everything and to put ourselves last. And I had to shift and put myself towards the top of the list in order to get well.
And my wife, I share my wife because one of the things she has educated me on is the mental battle of how hard it is to be a mother.
Mhm.
One thing she says, if a man takes a kid to a soccer game, everybody looks at that man like he's the greatest thing in the world, but the mothers packed the lunches, did everything, put the ice away. And at first I want to say I can't imagine what it would be like. I was raised by a single mom, so I empathize with
Mhm.
that. But I know in your book you had shared a story of how your son had asked you, "Am I gonna die?" or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing. You said, "No, I think God has it more to do with you." And your son went, "Oh, good," you know,
Yeah.
in a part of your book. And I'm curious to know if somebody asked you, clearly God is not done with you, how would you answer why he's not done with you? If I may
Mm,
challenge you with that
yeah.
question.
I got asked a similar question today, actually, so this is good timing. I'm still here, right? So any of us that are still here, we're not done. We still have a role to play on this earth because we're here, and we get to choose what kind of role we're going to play. Is it going to be a positive one, or is it going to be a negative one? I'm still here. I do remember that. I came home from surgery, and my son was like, "You're okay." I was afraid. That's pretty impactful moment for parents too. It's really hard for younger kids to articulate where
Right.
they're at when a parent is going through something and they feel it. So they feel it's
Mm.
different, but they may not articulate it really well. I got a lot of parenting lessons on this journey too.
What were one or two parenting lessons you could share with somebody who may be going through a time where they need to be resilient? Any specifics you could speak to in that statement?
Hmm. My older child, he struggled a lot in his preschool during that time frame and didn't really articulate. He didn't really know why.
Mm.
He struggled with it was with friends or with just different with teachers, just a lot of struggle. And it wasn't that he wasn't smart, it wasn't that he didn't get it, but just really struggled. And I didn't know how to solve it. There's not the best manual for how to be a parent and how to solve everything.
Correct.
Another area to ask for help. And I can remember one of the people I went to for help, my thought was, okay, they'll talk to me and then they'll bring my son in and we'll all be good. And he
Right.
looked at me and he said, well, Diana, what if the only person I need to fix is you? It's easier just to fix yourself. Fair. But that taught me a lot to be thinking through what I needed to do differently as a parent to connect better with my child, to understand where he was at, to reinforce behavior and to have some consequences for tough behavior. It just forced me to look at myself and what I could do differently. That child, I am just extremely proud to say he's 16 now. He's in the Cambridge ACE program at his school, which is a pretty intense education program that he picked. He had to go
Wow.
through an application process to get in. And I'm incredibly thankful and blessed. I'll look back through stories of some really tough moments with him and
Mm.
know that if I gave up and I didn't have those and didn't, instead of choosing those tough moments and tough conversations and tough discipline moments, I don't know where I'd be today. But I'm super
Yeah.
thankful that I had people coaching me to go, Dinah, no, it's you. You've got to fight. You've got to be a different parent for this one.
You mentioned Viktor Frankl earlier, and I that was a book when I was back to college. That was a book we really peeled the onion a lot on. Is it the book overall? Is there any key moments from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning that as you were fighting this fight through cancer, that you're like, that section of it means a lot? Anything there that maybe we want to highlight of people? I recommend people buy your book, but maybe they
Yeah.
want to supplement to with that as well, if that's fair.
I can remember when I first picked that book up to read it, I thought it was a little dry at the beginning. Similar
Correct.
to, I think at the same time, I was also reading Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the
Yep, I
first
recall.
chapters are a little like, okay, but then keep reading because it's a pretty impactful book as well. And I had to read that book for a paper in my English lit class in college. So I didn't have a choice not to read the whole book. I couldn't tell you a chapter that stood out. It was more the dynamic of learning about a person that was in a Nazi prison camp, that
Yeah.
the people that beat him, starved him, mocked him, he
Mhm.
still found a way to navigate positively and handle it and just stand out and be different. His phrase around nobody can steal my freedom to choose how I respond. That is my one of my favorite quotes. A lot of times we act like we're a victim when something
Yeah.
happens to us, but he wasn't a victim. And he went through a lot more rough stuff than I did. And if he could still choose positive, then why can't I? Like I have like no excuse after I read that story. I
Correct.
choose positive. And that's been impactful to me to watch in multiple areas of my life, not just on my cancer journey, but in the professional life or with friends or with kids. It's very natural to go to the victim mindset. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. And I
Mm.
should have done this. The world's against me. To use all those things.
Right.
but I am letting the situation steal me. And I'm becoming a victim to the situation instead of thriving forward and being resilient. And he, Viktor
Hmm.
Frankl, he was resilient. No doubt
I,
about it.
I would agree with that 100%. I find it intriguing because I am 100% guilty of, I say there's victim statements and there's value statements to piggyback off what you
Mm.
said. And I am extremely guilty of when I don't get my way or like I've been looked over a promotion. I get mad. I'm guilty 100%. One of the things I remember my therapist saying is suffering is relative to the situation. That's something I've heard. I'm curious though, because your journey of what you've had to overcome, just the good fight of being a mom, single mom, everything. Do people still try to tell you their problems? I'm curious, or is it just they see you as such an example where they don't?
It depends. I
Depends.
usually, after I have an opportunity to speak or to share, people will come up and say, okay, I was going to complain this morning about something I was going through, and you've given me a different perspective today. So I have multiple moments like that, but there are some people that I've been trained to be a listener. That is a lot
Mm.
of what I do as a leader. I listen and then wait for the opportunity for them to ask for help to be coached forward. I do get people that come and want to share everything that is happening, and I listen and look for the opportunity for them to ask for help to be coached to move forward.
You're doing a lot of speaking. You're DISC certified with John C. Maxwell. What are some of those common things you say to people who come to you and they project their problems onto you? What are some pieces of advice?
One thing that I didn't mention earlier is spent a lot of time at one of the organizations I was at around culture and values, and that's an area I have a lot of passion around. And one of the things we implemented as a company was John Gordon's concept of the no complaining rule. It's a great book if you haven't read it. And it's really short, simple read, but we took that and went, okay, we need to implement this because that takes away from, I can't just go complain about everything. It's mindless complaining and it comes to lose millions every year with lots of mindless complaining. We've got to move
Right.
it to a justified complaint, which means I have to have a solution with it. I can't just
Mm.
mindlessly complain. I need to have a solution and be talking about it with somebody that can do something about it. And so we did quite an evolution in that business of shifting away from that mindless complaining to getting to justified complaints and also giving them a forum to submit ideas for things. So that way we were doing this in motion. That company was acquired, and then I later went back to the original company portion that didn't get acquired to be help with the president transition. Some of my old team members still work there, and they came in and like, Diana, I already prepped them. They've never worked with you. That if they want to come to you with a problem, they have to have a solution. And I just laughed and I was like, well, that's good. You learned from me. So that is important to me from a work perspective is I'm happy to talk about a problem or a complaint, but we're going to lead with solutions. I'm not just going to take your monkey. There's a great article
Yeah.
around passing around the monkeys. I'm not just going to take it for you. I am happy to partner with you on a solution, but I am not going to take it. I'm going to help enable you to go solve your problem.
So the definition of, and it was the culture fixes with that company you were mentioning. There was mindless complaints. Was that the first,
That was the
I guess
full
we'll call
phrase.
that the
Yeah.
bad definition. This is what we want to avoid. But a justified complaint is one that actually is tied into a solution preemptively before brought to your attention.
Yeah.
Correct? Did
Correct.
I define that right for context?
You did what?
Good. And I feel like I'm getting better at my listening skills, but I always know there's work to be done. That's why I was asking. I always look at data points in terms of like 83% of a manager's time is dealing with conflict, for example.
Mm.
Let's just go with that data point. Based on that and based on what you did successfully in your career holding vice president positions, are you saying that a big fix in any company is we have to create a system like you did that creates justified complaints where the solution is pre-brought Is that by the employee, the manager, just for context to simplify the conversation a little more down, if that's fair?
Yeah, certainly. We looked at it as across anybody. Oftentimes the complaining, the gossiping happens like at the lower levels within the organization. And that's where a lot of wasted time is. So we spent a lot of time talking about the shift to justified complaints in groups, but then also spent time in smaller, somebody from each department talking about what we're meant, what our, what our task was there to move from mindless to justified. And then we would practice and we would say, okay, we're in a group of 10. We're going to pretend it's Vegas. So you can bring up anything you want, but we're not going to leave here without a solution together and help them to get into the practice and the mindset of it. If it was a complaint about somebody else, I don't do well with that either. I in terms of conflict is best solved when I go talk to the person that I have a problem with. If
Right.
I'm going around them, I'm not really being very loyal to them. And I get it's hard to talk to somebody face to face about a problem, but if you really care, that's what you do. And that is that's a whole nother topic around working with people and helping them to learn how to have those conversations.
It is. And that's why people should hire you to do disc training, at least in my opinion. It's interesting though, because I think if I may play devil's advocate a little bit there, you always hear stories though of, oh, at Google, anybody can walk into anybody's office and talk about anything. And I
Mhm.
don't know if I'm blurring lines a little bit in that example, but people hear that and then they feel that they should be able to go to a leader without talking to their manager sometimes. What are your thoughts on that, if I may?
I don't like that concept of not following protocol of talking to either the person you have a problem with or your manager first. I think there's a reason why those things are outlined. And I don't know specifically Google's policy. I know for me, if somebody would come and try to talk with me and skip a level, I would say, you know what? We need to pull your manager in. Why don't we call him in and we'll all talk about it together? Or would you rather just go talk with him first and shift that quickly? Because as soon as I start to engage with that individual, I am breaking some of my trust with my manager because I'm allowing them to come talk to me without talking with them first. And I'm breaking that trust I've built with my manager when I take that on.
I went through the journey of hiring a therapist. I had a toxic manager for 2 years, just being totally being. I had a lot of psychological damage. My daughter was in the hospital. I tried to tell her. She cut me off mid sentence and said, I don't really care about you and your personal problems. Like those were like events I had.
Mm.
I did that for 2 years. So I was broken. Like I felt broken. And this is not probably a conversation I should bring to somebody as strong as you. But looking back on that, I do wish maybe I could have attempted one more time to try to resolve it. First off, I just want to say I love that idea of like a justified system and solution. That is a great idea. I haven't heard it that way before. But I'm curious your perspective on that situation on a high level. If somebody else is out there in this situation and they're not listening or they're in their own world, just not widening their scope to be a better person. If you could wave a magic wand, what are the first key habits you would also shift? And maybe it goes back to that system you created, but is there anything else there you want to add value to what I was putting on the table in our conversation together?
You're trying to talk with somebody and they're just not listening to you. And how do you?
Somebody's in a psychologically tough situation. I'll give you another example. My
Yeah.
wife had a friend who we had dinner with, and she was saying how she told her worker that, hey, I think if you could put some stuff into this project management system, it would be good. And the worker just started crying, just to
Mm,
give me an example. Now, obviously, this is a younger worker,
yeah.
more seasoned worker type thing. I think sometimes when you're new in your career, we don't handle feedback as well. Maybe we could frame it from that lens, if that makes sense.
I think in those employee scenarios, I work personally to take the approach that to work to see people to their potential as a 10. So if
Okay.
if somebody breaks down crying with me, I'm immediately going to go to, okay, there's something broader than this conversation that's happening. So how
Right.
can I help understand, meet them where they are, and then help them to understand like my intent and connect with them, help them, and then help us figure out how we move forward. Always want to, I am much more on the DISC profile set and very people oriented. I'm not very task oriented. So
Oh,
in
really?
scenarios like that, I'm always gonna pause and go, "Wait, what's happening? Let's go talk over here," because that means more to me than the task is making sure that the person is okay. But I've reported to people that are very task focused, and when you're navigating through, I have a 12-year cancer journey, so I always have reported to somebody during that time frame. And when I was first diagnosed, I had the best boss and mentor I've ever had, and a friend, and he helped me along the journey. Later on, the time frame where my eye was removed, not the same situation. It was a bit tougher, and I had to navigate. I had a lot more experience by that point, but it certainly was not I wasn't met with the same care as a person as I
Mm,
was when I was first diagnosed, and I had to figure out how to navigate that and figure out how
mm,
I personally wanted to handle it. And those are all difficult situations to go to. That is a balance and the importance of a good human resources department within a company, that an employee has somebody to go talk to when
right.
they have a manager that maybe is more task focused, not as good as understanding tough conversations or things that are happening outside of work. As blessed when the human resources departments can make great impacts like that.
I like that. I like how we defined a system of justified with solutions. I like those definitions. I'm a nerd for this interpersonal stuff, to be honest with you. Let's go a little backwards. And I'm curious because you had shared how you had to relearn with having one eye after you went through. How long did that take, if I may, to relearn or retrain the skill? I know right now I'm taking it for granted personally, and I know in your book you had shared that as well. How long did it take you to relearn that skill after everything, if I may?
When I had my surgeries when I was first diagnosed, my left eye was closed for 4 months, so it was still there and
Right.
working, but it was closed because of all the surgery they had to do around it to remove the tumor. That was almost harder than to wake up and not have an eye at all after
Mm,
surgery, because when my eye was still there, it was still trying to work, and so driving I had to learn how to drive a vehicle again. I had to figure out, I in my independence said, "Oh, I'll go check the mail the day I got home," and so I went to press the button on the elevator, and my finger's here, but the button is way over here. I can't really see my fingers, but because your
yeah.
perception is so far off and you don't realize it, it's amazing how our two eyes work together. So it took time. Now it's more, I don't have an eye anymore, so it's not fighting to work. It is more being aware of where my blind spots are. When I'm driving, I need to, be extra conscious to look to that side. When
Right.
I'm presenting to a group, I need to be very present on turning more to my left side so that I'm not ignoring that side of the group. I There's things that I've done my whole life, or the majority of my life, play basketball, so I can go and shoot a basket with one eye, and that was pretty quick to come back. Now, I like to play pickleball, that's the craze right now. I didn't play that my whole life, so I'm gonna have lots of funny, totally miss the ball moments because I have to learn everything I do new. It's a whole different learning challenge on that depth perception.
Hmm.
So I have to be okay to laugh at that because it can be pretty funny.
Hey, if you're comfortable laughing with it, I'll laugh with you. A lot of people don't know this. I was a comedian for 5 years that I
Oh,
had to
that's
put on
fun.
pause, do this MBA, and but that's a totally different conversation. I want to focus on you. I'm curious because we could define the word resilience in a lot of different ways. If you're a bodybuilder, it's getting bigger muscles to push more weight and train through it. But I'm curious your definition of resilience at this point based on your journey, and then I'll challenge you with some other things I've been experiencing with coworkers and friends, if that's fair, in a good way though.
So look at resilience as we all are going to have bad things happen to us. It's a matter of how we respond and how we get back up and keep going. We're all going to hit adversity. Some people sit in the adversity for a really long time. That's not very resilient. But if you get up and
Hmm.
keep moving and keep navigating positively through your adversity, whether it's an individual one like cancer, or if you're leading a company, your company is going to hit rough moments. Companies need their leaders not to sink into the rough moments. They need them to lead through the difficult times and through the change, and to lead positively and openly, transparently.
Right.
And that's how I look at resilience.
Resilience, the ability to overcome adversity mentally and emotionally quickly, is a simplified way of doing it. And as somebody who stews too long, would you say is less resilient versus somebody who can just do it faster?
Yes, that's a
Okay.
one way to look at it.
My mother survived breast cancer,
Hmm.
and I have family members who have survived that. I have a coworker who unfortunately has had to step back because of a certain diagnosis that's
Mm.
similarly breast cancer. And everybody's commiserating and praying and wishing her well. For somebody who may have had the diagnosis you weren't looking for, it's shocking. It's everything. What would you say to that one person who just got that diagnosis, and to give them comfort and, as your definition is, have that resilience skill to happen stronger where you can get through this adversity faster?
I encourage them to take time to just pause for a moment. It's a lot to come at you all at once. And so I think it's really important to just to pause and be grounded with whatever it is that grounds you. Faith and prayer is what grounds me. I get that's not what grounds everybody, but to just pause and be grounded. Gratitude is also very important, just to think through. Yes, I'm going to be going through this, but these are the people that are going to help me. These are the things I can still be thankful for. I just had a teenager come up and talk to me today about, do you navigate that, and how did you feel like thinking, well, you had cancer and
Mm,
you might not have as long to live as somebody else. And I looked at her and smiled and said, neither you or I are guaranteed to live longer than this moment. I have cancer, you don't, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to live longer. We don't know. Both of us need to make the most of our moments. That would be my encouragement as well to somebody with a new diagnosis. You're still here. Yes, your journey is going to hit some adversity you haven't experienced before, but don't let that take the moments that you have. Still make the most of those moments, because you can't get them back.
Talk about to me about your victories today, now that we are on the other side of that in this hero's journey you have, Diana, if that's fair.
I was telling my group this morning, once you have cancer, you're you're not cleared, like fully cleared and like cancer free for a season. So you're all I
Correct.
have checkups, I have MRIs every 3 months. And
Okay.
it's always a reminder to me, actually. So that's an MRI to scan my head, but take time to pause. That how am I doing with the rest of my body? Right, my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health. It's a good reminder to pause and scan your whole body, not just where the cancer was. I have been blessed with so many different opportunities around the journey, like people that I've met. I've had the opportunity to help patients that need to undergo a surgery similar to mine, and to help talk them through, you can do it, what it's going to feel like to answer all the questions they have that I didn't have anybody to ask. Like, your doctors
Mm.
don't really know what it's like to be the patient. I am happy to help them to navigate through that. I've also had the opportunity to go back and participate in training for nurses at the University of Miami, or to speak to leadership or nurse leadership, and to just share the patient's story and the importance of what they do, and to help them remember why they picked what they did from the first place. Because it
Right.
gets really hard to be in the medical profession after a season. Not everybody's kind. And I just love those opportunities to use my unique luck, my unique journey, to help bless somebody else, or to help them remember that what they do matters.
Interesting. I love that. But you're married now. Your husband, Robert. How long have you been married now, if I may?
We just had our anniversary 2 days ago, so we've been married for
Oh,
7
okay.
years.
So you
7
said
years.
7 years?
Yes, yeah.
Congratulations. That's so awesome. Would you mind sharing? Because I had I had a guy. His name is Bernardo Mendez. He's one of the top relationship coaches in the world. He helps them over 40 find love. It was an interesting podcast I did, and he has some pretty interesting journeys of women who've been through tough situations, but they can still find love and all that. I didn't plan on going down this path with you, but maybe somebody who's going down that journey also who kind of feels hopeless, why you still deserve to be loved and you can still find love
Mm,
despite these challenges, if we can peel the onion. I know it's a pop question, it's a pop quiz question for you, but I figure you can handle it if that's fair.
I can. I take questions from middle schoolers, and who knows what I'm gonna get, so I can handle this one. With At the point in time where I was starting my cancer journey, I did not want love, I did not want a boyfriend. I wanted friends, and
Hmm.
is what was most important to me was to have friends, and so Bromley did show up to be a friend, and that's what he was first. If he just would have shown up and said, "Hey, will you go out for a date?" I would have been hard no. I need a friend. And he showed up multiple times as a friend to me. And that's the only way we ended up dating. And I would say as well, because I'm really thankful for that actually, because when we're going
Right.
through a tough time, jumping into a relationship or trying to chase love may not be a good thing. Our heart might not be able to handle that. And so
Right.
my encouragement is to just find great friends and allow that to happen because there's no greater blessing to be married to your best friend. And
Hmm.
just take time to find friends and do friend first. Don't try to find love first. I have experience. This was my third marriage, so
Oh,
I've learned some lessons along the way.
we do live in a society, I feel at times, where we judge women too much. That's just my opinion. We need to be better about that. I was telling other people, let's not anger the people who can handle the population in the future." I don't know if I can, I think I can make that joke. Hopefully that doesn't, it's
That's
not a weird joke.
No, it's fine.
Hopefully it's not, doesn't offend. So where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Diana Fritz may be a common name, but there's only going to be one with one I promise. And then also my website at grituiuq.com. One thing I do offer to people that come to me from a podcast is just a complimentary coaching session to just talk through what they're looking to solve. My goal is to add value to them in that time frame, and then we can figure out from there if anything makes sense longer term.
What audiences would you say you're speaking to the most to today, Diana?
Varies. I've been blessed. Right now, I could go from talking with preschool children who ask me the same question every week about what happened to my eye, but they still love to be with me and to smile and laugh together. Middle school and secondary students, it's a different talking point and message. Mental health, right, is a bigger struggle today than what it has been. They have a lot of
Hmm.
questions for me on my journey and my story that can help them to think through how they can move forward through their adversity and what they're experiencing. And I love the opportunities to connect with them as individuals and as growing. There are they're our next leaders and the opportunity to impact them. And then other areas of I mentioned earlier, nurses and hospital staff love to remind them of the importance of what they do and their why. And then we've also spent time around businesses and working on communication and justified complaints, making sure we're making the most of our company and our culture.
Are you cool if I ask some follow up questions to what you
Sure.
said? You mentioned mental health is a problem. Why is that an important factor to you?
It is certainly something, and I couldn't tell you the articles, but I just know my children are in the school system right now. And so
Right.
there is more emphasis than ever, classes and topics around mental health. I also speak at a local college and mental health. Multiple times you'll see there's a session on mental health. The reality, I think some people could look at it and maybe go, I don't get it. But
Mm.
I think what we miss is when I was my children's age or when I was the age of, a college student, we did not have our phones in our hands all the time. We didn't have everything coming at us. We had more real relationships. We didn't have as
Mhm.
much fake relationships on whatever the social media platform is. I'd be old if I said Facebook, right? That's not what my kids use. But we had more real and authentic connections with people. And with COVID and everybody being distanced, and then the introduction of all the technology and media, we do not have the youth of today don't have the same relationships that we would have had, and they need help to navigate.
Do you feel sometimes adults and students, because you speak to a wide variety of audiences, you speak with hospitals, you speak with companies, you speak with schools, do you feel sometimes there are some similarities between adults and students? Do they ask the same questions you feel? Or is there some,
Mm.
because of your subject matter? I'm just curious.
I do get some of the same questions, but I will tell you that the youth are much more, they'll ask anything, even if they don't know me. I could get on an elevator with adults and a child and not know any of them. The adults will
Mm,
probably look away because I look different. The child is going to look me in the eye and say, "You only have one eye," or something like that.
that's my daughter.
But I love that. I love to talk with them and engage with them and go, I do. But every time you see me, be thankful you have two. I'm thankful I have one, or whatever dialogue we have together.
Right.
That is so good to teach our children to talk with people that are different. We're all
Mm.
different. I just, it stands out a little more.
No, I love that. I will say I love how humble you are. I love how down to earth you are. And it's just you're a pleasure to talk to. What do you want to be remembered for? And what's most important that people gain?
I want, um, I want them to be able to say that I made a positive impact on their lives and that I shined the light of Jesus to them and I helped them to move forward.